The Winter's Tale is a play by William Shakespeare, originally published in the First Folio of 1623. Although it was grouped among the comedies, some modern editors have relabeled the play as one of Shakespeare's late romances. Some critics consider it to be one of Shakespeare's problem plays, because the first three acts are filled with intense psychological drama, while the last two acts are comedic and supply a happy ending. The play has been intermittently popular, revived in productions in various forms and adaptations by some of the leading theatre practitioners in Shakespearean performance history, beginning after a long interval with David Garrick and his adaptation Florizel and Perdita, first performed in 1753 and published in 1756. The Winter's Tale was revived again in the 19th century, when the fourth pastoral act was widely popular. In the second half of the 20th century, The Winter's Tale in its entirety, and drawn largely from the First Folio text, was often performed, with varying degrees of success. Characters. Synopsis. An ink drawing of Act 2. Scene E. Paulina imploring Leontes to have mercy on his daughter, Perdita. Illustration was designed for an edition of Lamb's Tales. Copyrighted 1918. Following a brief setup scene, the play begins with the appearance of two childhood friends, Leontes, king of Sicilia, and Polixenes, the king of Bohemia. Polixenes is visiting the kingdom of Sicilia, and is enjoying catching up with his old friend. However, after 9 months, Polixenes yearns to return to his own kingdom to tend to affairs and see his son. Leontes desperately attempts to get Polixenes to stay longer, but is unsuccessful. Leontes then decides to send his wife, Queen Hermione, to try to convince Polixenes. Hermione agrees and with 3 short speeches is successful. Leontes is puzzled as to how Hermione convinced Polixenes so easily, and Leontes suddenly goes insane and suspects that his pregnant wife has been having an affair with Polixenes and that the child is a bastard. Leontes orders Camillo, a Sicilian lord, to poison Polixenes. Camillo instead warns Polixenes and they both flee to Bohemia. Furious at their escape, Leontes now publicly accuses his wife of infidelity, and declares that the child she is bearing must be illegitimate. He throws her in prison, over the protests of his nobles, and sends 2 of his lords, Cleomenes and Dion, to the oracle at Delphos for what he is sure will be confirmation of his suspicions. Meanwhile, the queen gives birth to a girl, and her loyal friend Paulina takes the baby to the king, in the hopes that the sight of the child will soften his heart. He grows angrier, however, and orders Paulina's husband, Lord Antigonus, to take the child and abandon it in a desolate place. Cleomenes and Dion return from Delphos with word from the oracle and find Hermione publicly and humiliatingly put on trial before the king. She asserts her innocence, and asks for the word of the oracle to be read before the court. The oracle states categorically that Hermione and Polixenes are innocent, Camillo an honest man, and that Leontes will have no heir until his lost daughter is found. Leontes shuns the news, refusing to believe it as the truth. As this news is revealed, word comes that Len's son, Emilius, has died of a wasting sickness brought on by the accusations against his mother. Hermione, meanwhile, falls in a swoon, and is carried away by Paulina, who subsequently reports the queen's death to her heartbroken and repentant husband. Leontes vows to spend the rest of his days atoning for the loss of his son, his abandoned daughter, and his queen. Antigonus, meanwhile, abandons the baby on the coast of Bohemia, reporting that Hermione appeared to him in a dream and bade him name the girl Perdita. He leaves a fardel, a bundle, by the baby containing gold and other trinkets which suggest that the baby is of noble blood. A violent storm suddenly appears, wrecking the ship on which Antigonus arrived. He wishes to take pity on the child, but is chased away in one of Shakespeare's most famous stage directions, Exit, pursued by a bear. Quote, "It is not known whether Shakespeare used a real bear from the London bear pits, or an actor in bear costume. Fortunately, Perdita is rescued by a shepherd and his son, also known as Clown." Quote, "Time enters and announces the passage of 16 years. Camillo, now in the service of Polixenes, begs the Bohemian king to allow him to return to Sicilia. Polixenes refuses, and reports to Camillo that his son, Prince Florizel, has fallen in love with a lowly shepherd girl, Perdita. He suggests to Camillo that, to take his mind off thoughts of home, they disguise themselves and attend the sheep-shearing feast where Florizel and Perdita will be betrothed. At the feast, hosted by the old shepherd who has prospered thanks to the gold in the fardel, the peddler Autolycus picks the pocket of the young shepherd and, in various guises, entertains the guests with bawdy songs and the trinkets he sells. Disguised, Polixenes and Camillo watch as Florizel, under the guise of a shepherd named Doricles, and Perdita are betrothed. Then, tearing off the disguise, Polixenes angrily intervenes, threatening the old shepherd and Perdita with torture and death and ordering his son never to see the shepherd's daughter again, with the aid of Camillo, however, who longs to see his native land again. Florizel and Perdita take ship for Sicilia, using the clothes of Autolycus as a disguise. They are joined in their voyage by the old shepherd and his son, who are directed there by Autolycus. In Sicilia, Leontes is still in mourning. Cleomenes and Dion plead with him to end his time of repentance because the kingdom needs an heir. Paulina, however, convinces the king to continue his penance until she alone finds him a wife. Florizel and Perdita arrive, and they are greeted effusively by Leontes. Florizel pretends to be on a diplomatic mission from his father, but his cover is blown when Polixenes and Camillo, too, arrive in Sicilia. The meeting and reconciliation of the kings and princes is reported by gentlemen of the Sicilian court, how the old shepherd raised Perdita, how Antigonus met his end, how Leontes was overjoyed at being reunited with his daughter, and how he begged Polixenes for forgiveness. The old shepherd and young shepherd, now made gentlemen by the kings, meet Autolycus, who asks them for their forgiveness for his roguery. Leontes, Polixenes, Camillo, Florizel and Perdita then go to Paulina's house in the country, where a statue of Hermione has been recently finished. The sight of his wife's form makes Leontes distraught, but then, to everyone's amazement, the statue shows signs of vitality. It is Hermione, restored to life. As the play ends, Perdita and Florizel are engaged, and the whole company celebrates the miracle. Despite this happy endings typical of Shakespeare's comedies and romances, the impression of the unjust death of young Prince Mamilius lingers to the end, being an element of unredeemed tragedy, in addition to the years wasted in separation. Date and text. The play was not published until the First Folio of 1623, in spite of tentative early datings. See below. Most critics believe the play is one of Shakespeare's later works, possibly written in 1610 or 1611. In the late 18th century, Edmund Malone suggested that a book listed in the Stationer's Register on the 22nd of May 1594, under the title, A Winter's Night's Pastime, might have been Shakespeare's, though no copy of it is known. Analysis and criticism. Title of the play. A play called The Winter's Tale would immediately indicate to contemporary audiences that the work would present an idle tale, an old wives' tale not intended to be realistic and offering the promise of a happy ending. The title may have been inspired by George Peele's play The Old Wives' Tale of 1590, in which a storyteller tells a merry winter's tale of a missing daughter. Indeed, his mother is soon put on trial for treason and adultery. and his death is announced seconds after she is shown to have been faithful, and Leontis's accusations unfounded. Debates. The statue. While the language Paulina uses in the final scene evokes the sense of a magical ritual through which Hermione is brought back to life, there are several passages which suggest a far likelier case. That Paulina hid Hermione at a remote location to protect her from Len's wrath, and that the reanimation of Hermione does not derive from any magic. The steward announces that the members of the court have gone to Paulina's dwelling to see the statue. Ruggiero offers this exposition: "I thought she had some great matter there in hand, for she lived now." Hermione later asserts that her desire to see her daughter allowed her to endure 16 years of separation. "Thou shalt hear that I, knowing by Paulina that the oracle gave hope thou wast in being, have preserved myself to see the issue." However, the action of 3:2 calls into question the rational explanation that Hermione was spirited away and sequestered for 16 years. Hermione swoons upon the news of Mamilius's death, and is rushed from the room. Paulina returns after a short monologue from Leontes, bearing the news of Hermione's death. After some discussion, Leontes demands to be led toward the bodies of his wife and son. "Prithee, bring me to the dead bodies of my queen and son. One grave shall be for both. Upon them shall the causes of their death appear. Unto our shame perpetual." Paulina seems convinced of Hermione's death, and Len's order to visit both bodies and see them interred is never called into question by later events in the play. The Seacoast of Bohemia. Shakespeare's fellow playwright Ben Jonson ridiculed the presence in the play of a seacoast and a desert in Bohemia, since the Kingdom of Bohemia, which roughly corresponds to the modern-day Czech Republic, had neither a coast, being landlocked, nor a desert. In 1891, Edmundo von Lippmann pointed out that Bohemia was also a rare name for Apulia in southern Italy. This theory was adopted in Charles Kean's influential 19th-century production of the play, which featured a resplendent Bithynie court, at the time of the medieval Kingdom of Sicily. However, Bithynia was long extinct and its territories were controlled by the Byzantine Empire. On the other hand, the play alludes to Hellenistic antiquity, e.g., the Oracle of Delphos, the names of the kings, so that the Kingdom of Sicily may refer to Greek Sicily, not to the Kingdom of Sicily of later medieval times. The pastoral genre is not known for precise verisimilitude, and, like the assortment of mixed references to ancient religion and contemporary religious figures and customs, this possible inaccuracy may have been included to underscore the play's fantastical and chimeric quality. As Andrew Gurr puts it, Bohemia may have been given a seacoast to flout geographical realism, and to underline the unreality of place in the play. Another theory explaining the existence of the seacoast in Bohemia, offered by C.H. Herford, is suggested in Shakespeare's chosen title of the play. A Winter's Tale is something associated with parents telling children stories of legends around a fireside. By using this title, it implies to the audience that these details should not be taken too seriously. In the novel Princeata by Robert Louis Stevenson, reference is made to the land of seaboard Bohemia in the context of an obvious parody of Shakespeare's apparent liberties with geography in the play. The Isle of Delphos. Likewise, Shakespeare's apparent mistake of placing the Oracle of Delphi on a small island has been used as evidence of Shakespeare's limited education. However, Shakespeare again copied this locale directly from Pandosto. Moreover, the erudite Robert Greene was not in error, as the Isle of Delphos does not refer to Delphi, but to the Cycladic island of Delos, the mythical birthplace of Apollo, which from the 15th to the late 17th century in England was known as Delphos. The Bear. The play contains one of the most famous Shakespearean stage directions. Exit. Pursued by a bear, presaging the offstage death of Antigonus. It is not known whether Shakespeare used a real bear from the London Bear Pits, or an actor in bear costume. The Royal Shakespeare Company, in one production of this play, used a large sheet of silk which moved and created shapes to symbolize both the bear and the gale in which Antigonus is traveling. Dildos. One comic moment in the play deals with a servant not realizing that poetry featuring references to dildos is vulgar, presumably from not knowing what the word means. This play and Ben Jonson's play The Alchemist are typically cited as the first usage of the word in publication. Performance history. The earliest recorded performance of the play was recorded by Simon Forman, the Elizabethan figure-caster or astrologer, who noted in his journal on the 11th of May 1611 that he saw The Winter's Tale at the Globe Playhouse. The play was then performed in front of King James at court on the 5th of November 1611. The play was also acted at Whitehall during the festivities preceding Princess Elizabeth's marriage to Frederick V, Elector Palatine, on the 14th of February 1613. Later court performances occurred on the 7th of April 1618, the 18th of January 1623, and the 16th of January 1634. A depiction of Mrs. Maddox as Hermione, from a 1779 performance at the Theatre Royal in Drury Lane. The Winter's Tale was not revived during the Restoration. Unlike many other Shakespearean plays, it was performed in 1741 at Goodman's Fields Theatre and in 1742 at Covent Garden. Adaptations, titled The Sheep Shearing and Florizel and Perdita, were acted at Covent Garden in 1754 and at Drury Lane in 1756. One of the best-remembered modern productions was staged by Peter Brook in London in 1951 and starred John Gielgud as Leontes. Other notable stagings featured John Philip Kemble in 1811, Samuel Phelps in 1845, and Charles Keene in an 1856 production that was famous for its elaborate sets and costumes. Johnston Forbes Robertson played Leontes memorably in 1887, and Herbert Beerbohm-Tree took on the role in 1906, the longest-running Broadway production. Sam Mendes inaugurated his transatlantic bridge project, directing The Winter's Tale with a cast featuring Simon Russell Beale, Leontes, Rebecca Hall, Hermione, Ethan Hawke, Autolycus, Simeon Cusick, Paulina, and Morven Christie. Perdita. Theatre Delicatessen also staged productions of The Winter's Tale in 2009. The play is in the repertory of the Stratford Festival of Canada and was seen at the New York Shakespeare Festival, Central Park, in 2010. The Hudson Shakespeare Company of New Jersey presented a production as part of their annual Shakespeare in the Park series. The action was set in Central Europe during the early 1900s era of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, but with a decidedly diverse cast. African-American actors Tony White played Leontes, Deirdre N. Johnson played Hermione, and Monica Jones in a dual role of Momulus and Perdita. Also, rounding out the diverse cast was Angela Liao as Paulina. In 2013, the RSC staged a new production directed by Lucy Bailey, starring Joe Stone Fewings as Leontes and Tara Fitzgerald as Hermione. Adaptations. There have been two film versions, one silent version in 1910. An orthodox BBC production was televised in 1981. It was produced by Jonathan Miller, directed by Jane Howell and starred Robert Stevens as Polixenes and Jeremy Kemp as Leontes. In 2014, choreographer Christopher Wheeldon created a full-length ballet based on the play for the Royal Ballet at the Royal Opera House in London. In 2015, author Jeanette Winterson published the book The Gap of Time, a modern adaptation of The Winter's Tale. In 2016, author E.K. Johnston published the book Exit, Pursued by a Bear, a modern adaptation of The Winter's Tale. Opera. An opera by Ryan Wigglesworth, The Winter's Tale, based on the play, was premiered at the English National Opera on February 27, 2017.